Well, good morning, everyone. Back for our usual Sony Alpha Rumours and News show. So I'm going to put up, we're in pre-show time at the moment. If you don't want to watch all the pre-show stuff, I will put a timeline down below so you can see when we're actually going live. I just want to bring up the chat so we can see who's here. So say hi in the chat, guys. I've got a few here already. Peter's here. Carl's here, Oreo's still up, and Mr. Yoo-hoo Tuber is also here. G'day Dion, good to see you here as well. Also's also here. Sizzleman is saying hello. Let me just check, saying the stream's okay. Chris is saying hello David, a nice day in Los Angeles for Corona. Yeah, it's too early for me now, guys, because it's only 10 o'clock. Due to the time zones changing 2 hours basically. I think I won't be having many Coronas with you guys until our summer again. I've got a Sony coffee with me this morning. A real coffee, though. It's not a coffee. It's a real coffee. Let me also check who's here. MSX Bro says hi. Floria says good evening from Long Island, New York. Aaron, g'day Aaron. Mick says good morning David. Eric says hey. Kelly says hello. Tim says early morning show. Yep. Sam says hello from Southern California. Can't wait to meet all you guys next year. Like I said, I'm coming out for a month to California, so I'm dying to do that. I'll be out on, I think we fly out on February the 10th. I'll talk about that again soon. Sandy says hi. Barry says hi. Joe says evening at 7 p.m. here. Dion said wow. Chat is 1 to 2 minutes delayed. Is it delayed back? Is it Dion? Yeah, it's YouTube's been playing up lately. I noticed a few people have been saying that it's been playing up. You need a theme song for your entrance, David. I know I do, Carl, don't I? I should get Aaron to make me one. Aaron, if you're listening, look after me. Give me some of that Puerto Rico love. I'd love a pre-show thing. Mick says red wine is great in the morning. Yeah, it's too early for me yet, though. I've got to do some work after this. Well, I'm going to go out for coffee once we've finished here. I always have a drink, though, with you guys when it's our summer, but the time zone now has made it a bit too early. Mark's saying hello. Kevin says, hey, David. John Big says hi, 1 a.m. in the UK. Well, thanks for staying up, John. Sean says hello. Carl says 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Eddie says hello from Barbados. It's amazing how many people from around the world now we're getting in these live chats, which is fantastic. Aaron says he'll do it. I love it. Thank you, Aaron. Also said chat isn't delayed. Oh, okay. Might have been just for Dion, perhaps. Aaron said we had one for the behind the photo. I know, but we couldn't play that because of the way we do that now, Aaron. But I can do it through Wirecast. Chat delay is about 30 seconds for me, which is normal. Yeah, so Tim's saying that. Oreo said I opened two windows, one for the chat, the other for the video, and they were out of sync by many seconds, so I turned one off. Yeah, it's weird, Oreo, isn't it? YouTube does some funny things. Gene says, good evening, David and Aaron. Can't stay long since I have a meeting. Sony is great. Planning on upgrading my backup to the a6400 from the a6300. And that's a really good backup, Gene. I will talk about the a6300 soon in the discussion we're going to have, actually. So stay tuned for that. Torben says, hey, Dave, I'll be falling asleep to your soothing voice tonight. No worries, Torben. Hopefully I can... I should do some ASMR. Hang on. Here we go. All right, you ready? Hello. What's happening out there? Testing 1, 2. Hang on. I'm going to do some ASMR tapping. Where's the small camera? Oh, here we go. I'll use that. I'm going to use the ASMR tapping. Hang on. Oh, I love it. What do you mean, Mr. Magoo, Michael? Don't say things like that. That's not very nice. I'll boot you. Mr. Magoo. I love it. Maybe the news will keep me awake. Maybe. I don't know whether now because I've done the ASMR or whatever that I'm going to be putting you to sleep. MX said, hey, David, going to California in mid-July and places that you would recommend. Well, I don't know you because I haven't really... Look, I've been to California before, But we're going to try and do a few different things this time. We obviously go into WPPI, so Vegas, and we're going to do as much as we can around LA as well. I want to shoot with a lot of the subscribers here. I'm hoping that we can organise some shoots. And then I want to drive up to San Francisco, like that whole road up to San Francisco and then back and go to Yosemite, is it, as well, as long as it's not too snowed in. But that's my plan at this stage. But I haven't got much planned apart from Disneyland, obviously, and stuff like that. 42 Pro says, good evening. Langston says, good evening. Michael says, Aaron's idea is Mr. Magoo. Thank you so much, Michael. Typical Aussie. Oh, I love it. Aaron's going asleep. Barry said, get Casey from Cameraspiracies to write you the opening tune. Yeah, I could just imagine that one. I love it. What about the reverse ASMR people? What's the reverse one? I am Brown's here. G'day, mate. How you going? Langston said that's a beautiful drive. Yeah, that's what I'm planning to do. And I'm also thinking that I might drive to Vegas as well, because I love deserty stuff and things like that. And I thought I may hire a car and drive to Vegas. I think, what is it about? Is it about 6 or 7 hours or something, or 5 hours? I can't remember. But yeah, I thought that I'd drive to Vegas as well. It's going to be so much fun. Gerald's here as well. G'day, Gerald. How are we going for time? I'm going to start this in a minute. And that's about it. We've caught up. So let me have a cheers. Well, it is not really a cheers because it is normal coffee. Aaron said, sleeping to your ASMR. Hello. What's going on out there? I love it. Pacific Coast Highway. Is that what it is, Eric? Is it? Yeah, well, that's where I'm going. I've driven to Vegas lots. It's about 5 to 6 hours. Yeah, that's why I thought I'd do it, Langston, just for something different. I thought I'd do something a little bit fun. Kerry and myself will probably love driving through there. Aaron, we've still got to get you up to WPPI. Don't let us down. Alex has said, hi, David. Any news about Sony a7S III? I'm going to be talking about that, but it's only the specs that are still leaking. Yes, a Vegas drive to the desert. Yeah, that's what I thought, Gerald. It might be really cool to do that. All right, so let me just bring up the thing and we'll start the show, but I've got to put down here, show start will be... Oh, actually, I'll do it once I bring over the Oastler images sign. Just bear with me for a second, guys. We're going to start the show. Well, welcome everyone. I should say g'day, give it my usual Aussie slant to it, to the Sony Alpha Rumours and News Show. If you're not really into Sony, it may not be the show for you. As you can see, don't call me a fanboy, but, you know, this might give you a hint of what this show is going to be about. I will put a timeline down below, so these shows always go quite long, so if you don't want to watch the whole show, you will be able to skip the show as well, or skip to which story interests you at least, if you don't want to watch the whole thing. So check that after the show's been on. Obviously, fire away questions. I'll keep coming back to the questions as we go along. You can see here that the questions are already firing out. We've got a number of people in already. Please, if you can, when you join, give us a thumbs up. That does make other people see that we're live. I really do appreciate that. We've got 13 at the moment. We've got one down already. Is that because I showed the Sony Alpha shirt? I love it. Oh, that's a crack up. So we've got one thumb down already. That's probably just because I showed the Sony cup and my Sony t-shirt. It's the Sony hater. They're probably going to hate what I tell them later on. Then I'm going to get a few more thumbs down. Lucky they can only give one thumbs down. That's all I've got to say. Now let me just give a really quick plug to this company that is giving me lenses and stuff. Well, not giving me, but I mean at least lending me stuff. CR Kennedy. If you are from Australia, please support them. Also from New Zealand. They're in every state. They're not paying me at all. So I'll just quickly come back to me just to explain that. They're not paying me. They're not even saying that I have to tailor the reviews. They're actually saying be honest, which is a great thing. But they are lending me the lenses that I can support. And that's what this one is. I've got to give this back on Monday. I don't want to give it back. So this is going back on Monday, but then I'm actually getting the 135, but it's going to be the Canon version. I'll talk about that in a minute. So it's this company, CR Kennedy. Like I said, they're in every state in Australia and also including New Zealand. So if you are after anything that's sort of photography related, they don't sell Sony cameras though. They sell other more high-end cameras, but they do sell Sigma lenses, drones, bags, you know, all other stuff, accessories, studio lighting, tripods and everything else. Photo accessories like even filters and stuff like that. So if you are a local Aussie, please support them because it's one company that I've found that I do love dealing with, and they are also supporting me and at least letting me get some gear that I can share with you guys. So that's all I wanted to plug for them. And like I said, they've been absolutely fantastic because they don't want anything paid at all, and they're just lending me the gear. And I think they're just going to share it on their site, but they definitely said review it as it is, which is fantastic. Another thing I wanted to show you was a couple of weeks ago I had the 20,000 meetup for my YouTube subscribers, but I kept forgetting to show this because one of the couples that, when we were having dinner after the actual meetup, I was walking over to talk to everyone because there was quite a lot of people there. I think we ended up having 30 odd people showing up for the shoot. And we all went out for dinner after that. And as I was walking to sort of talk to all the tables, because we couldn't all sit together, this person went, "David," and I went, "Oh, yes." And he had an English accent. And I'll just show you his photo because I kept forgetting to bring it over. So it's this lovely man here and his partner. They were from Wales. And he said, "David," he goes, "I watch you on YouTube." And I laughed because, you know, it's what a coincidence that I was there with my 20,000 subscribers. And he said to me, "David, I watch you on YouTube." And he said, "Can I have a selfie with you?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, no worries." So we had the selfies, and I promised him that I would share that photo. And I've forgotten since. And Kerry told me off last night. She said, "David, you still haven't shared that photo." So they're from Wales, a lovely couple. I can't remember their name, so if they are watching this or watch it a little bit later, you know, just comment down below. But I did want to say that sorry if I did forget to post the photo, but now I've done it, so I've actually shown it. So now I've got a clear conscience. So what I'm going to do, I've got the shoot. The final shoot with this is on Saturday night. One of my subscribers actually is over from South Australia. He's going to come and meet me as well. We're going to meet at the GPO. If anyone does want to tag along and watch what I'm doing, feel free to meet me on Saturday at 5 p.m. at the GPO if you do want to watch this shoot. I'm going to just message me or whatever and say that you're coming though. So this is I'm going to review this finally because I want to try and do a bokeh test at night or say late in the day with the lights and stuff. I've already done some during the day and I've been really happy with this lens, really happy with it. I'm going to do a focus test as well with Matisse because I'd like to try, I think it'll be Matisse if we have time, but I want to try and do a focus test that I can record on the Ninja and show you how this actually focuses because I was very surprised in how well this focuses. So stay tuned for that. The next one that I'm going to get when I take this back, like I said, I don't want to take it back. The next one that I'm going to get is the 135mm. And I wanted to get that because I wanted to do a direct comparison between the Sony 135 and the Sigma 135. The only issue is that I'm going to have to use, where is the adapter? I've got an MC11 somewhere. The only issue is that I'm going to have to use the MC11 because they've only got a Canon version available. So I'm not sure that a focusing test would be really the correct thing to do. I might try it anyway. I'll probably have the lens for 2 weeks, but I might try it anyway just to see how it works with the MC11 on the Canon adapter. But what's David? Wrong camera. Oh, thanks Oreo. Yeah, I might try and see. If I can do the Canon MC11 with the Canon's 135mm. Like I said, I think I'm confident that probably the results are going to be very similar. Like, I do think when you're looking at it, that the results themselves between... this is the G Master. I think image quality wise, I think you'll find that the results are going to be very comparable. In fact, I might even do a test and see if you can pick which one's which, and I don't think you probably will, but you may. But I think the results are going to be outstanding for both lenses. Where I think this one is going to go way in front is the autofocus. Yeah, I think it's going to be the autofocus of this that's going to really push this apart from the Sigma. Now, it's just a pity I can't get a Sony version of it, but they just haven't got one. And like Aaron said to me, he just said, David, the Sony stuff is selling that well that we just can't keep stock. And that's the problem. They just haven't got enough stock that's actually there. And that's probably why they want this back. It'll probably get sold as a second-hand one. Or it might just be, this is probably a review unit that they've got or something. But, you know, it's obviously, anything to do with Sony at the moment is incredibly hard to get. So I'm probably just going to have to bear it and try the MC11 with the Sigma 135 just to see how it performs. So I may do it more on image quality rather than focusing ability, because I do think that the focusing takes a little bit of a hit if you use the MC11. I'll still try it to show you what you're sort of going to get. But I do think it'll take a little bit of a hit. And some maybe even be able to let me know in the live chat or in the chat later on, you know, what the difference is if you use the MC11 as against, say, having the native version of the lens. I know Gilbert was telling me that he got one of his Sigma lens converted over by Sigma, and he said the focus improved converting it because they do something with the algorithm of the focusing or something as well. So it does improve it. So, you know, I think that may be the case. But I am interested to try. I've been wanting to try a Canon version on the Sony for ages with the MC11. So I'm getting that now. So that's one of the pluses as well. Carl said they are ridiculously large. I agree. They are large. That's for sure. What else have we got? David said the gentleman in the picture is Dawn Saunders. I'll have to look at that later. PJ Smith said the a7 III may be outselling other cameras, but overall there's no way Sony is outselling Nikon. I'm going to talk about that soon, PJ. Mark said, I have the 135 Sigma connected via my MC11 on my a7R III sitting here in front of me right now, if anyone has any questions. So how do you find the focus, Mark? Is it acceptable? Because that's the thing I'm just wondering about. Eric says, got my 135 GM yesterday morning. The AF is fast and dead silent. I'm going to talk about the 135 soon, as I think it's the second or third story coming in, so stay tuned for that. How much of the Canon colours comes from the lenses versus the camera bodies? Interesting, Dave. That'd be an interesting thing to think about. I'm not sure. PJ Smith said, not so much, it's the JP processing. Florio says, the Sigma MC11 is now $100 off at B&H. Yeah, I got it for that cheaper price as well from B&H, Florio. I have it and use it with my Canon L lenses and it's perfect. Oreo said it would be great to have the MC11 version that features the ND filter. Yeah, that would be fantastic. So that's it at this stage anyway. So I am doing the shoot on Saturday evening, like I said, 5 o'clock. I'm going to try a few things like with the bokeh, the lights and stuff in the background. I have to say that, yes, the Sigma MC11, I will do probably a final review, but the Sigma MC11 is big, but I have adored using it. It's not something I'd want to lug around all day, but the results are outstanding. I mean, if you want to blow away the background, let me just see if I've still got that. Yeah, I have here. If you want to blow away the background, you know, this is the lens to do it. Like, it's you would not believe there was a background even there. The other images that I shot from this lens were 1.4, but you know, it probably won't come through. I can't enlarge it because it's just using preview. But stunningly sharp. The separation is stunning. The background, literally, if that's what you're after and you want to blow everything away, the 105 can't be beaten, I don't think, in that regard. So, you know, it just depends. You know, like I said, in fact, I would dearly love to, I would dearly love to get one. I really would like to get one, as well as having the 135 as well, because it just does have that stunning separation. The main difference between the two is that, you know, you've got that 1.4 aperture, which if you want to use that, you can. It lets obviously more light in, and it will blow the background away a little bit more. And the working distance is so much shorter, like I showed you that. I don't think I've still got those images saved. If you check working images, I've got some saved. You'll be able to have a look at that as well, because there is a big difference. I think it almost was about 3 meters difference. So if you're working in a wedding scenario, it would be fantastic if you could use that, say the 105, in a tighter environment. And that's where I would love to get one. And eventually I might purchase that lens eventually. There's a couple that I probably want to get before it though. I may get the Samyang the Samyang 85. I'm seriously thinking about selling my Batis 85 1.8 and getting the Samyang version. The other thing that I'm seriously thinking about getting is the G Master 24mm. So, but that's down the track. I'm happy with what I've got for the moment. So stay tuned for the results from Saturday's shoot that I'm actually doing. So let's have a look anyway. So we're going to start the show. So let me put on here first show start, first story. I've done that wrong actually. It's meant to be BCM specs. Let me just change this, because if I don't do this, it's going to be BCN specs. BCN numbers. Because I'm going to discuss with you the camera sales, because it's really interesting. So let me put in there 21, that's actually 22, is close enough. 22. All right, so let's go to the first story. I wanted to talk about this because already in the chat, people have been starting to discuss this. BCN reports have come out, and it's saying that the Sony a7 III sells more than the competition combined. Now, they're talking about mirrorless here, of course. Excuse me if I still cough. It's nearly better. But if you're looking at this, if you look at the graphs, you can see how much the a7 III, in fact, is still growing, which is incredible when you think how long the a7 III has been out, and it's still growing. Whereas if you look at the others, particularly if you look at the Canon EOS RP, it started out reasonably strong, but you know, there's a fair dip there. The Z6 has sort of been fairly constant, but you know, not really. The sales, obviously, if you're looking at this, haven't been that amazing. The same as the A7 II. The EOS R is a little bit better than the Z6. But again, the sales have just sort of been steady down the bottom, but nowhere near what the Sony a7 III is doing, which is incredible if you look at it. And like they've said down here, wow. And it really is wow when you think that it says currently the 3 competition cameras from Canon and Nikon all together sell less than the amount of the a7 III. Of course, this represents for the Japanese market, and you've got to make, you know, that has to be mentioned here, that this is the Japanese market. And I'd love to see what the US market is the same. But I wouldn't be surprised to see that it may not be as high, but it wouldn't surprise me to see that the a7 III is still selling much better than the other cameras as well, even in the US market. But it's still incredible when you think how long the a7 III has been out. And that's why I wanted to sort of show this, that if you think that that camera is selling more than all of those combined, it's pretty amazing. There's a few reasons for this, and I think that they waited too long to get into the marketplace. This is one of the problems, and we've discussed this over a long period of time, that Canon, Nikon waited way too long to get in. They should have jumped the gun probably 2 years ago, and we've all been discussing that as well over, you know, in these shows, that they should have been doing that a long time ago. So that has been an issue for them. But the other issue too is that their releases were there were half releases in most ways, because they held back again, and this is the problem. Canon particularly Nikon not so much, but Canon particularly held back. And what I mean by that is the terrible things that they've done, like with the the cropping when you shoot 4K and things like that, only putting one card slot into that camera. There's things like that that are so annoying if you were a Canon shooter that, you might have waited all this time to say, well, I'm not going to jump ship. I'm going to wait for this Canon, because everyone knew it was going to come. I'm going to wait for that and then just see what they release. And then it's just terrible, really, what they've done. I mean, it's okay if you say want to use it for vlogging or anything else. The Canon EOS R is actually quite good, but the second that you want to use it as a professional type camera in video, particularly photography, it's probably it does seem to be that it's okay, but it's a much older sensor. The dynamic range is much less. The ISO will have to be pumped up a lot higher because the noise is not going to be as good on the Canon EOS R. The lenses are incredibly expensive for what the camera body price is. The lenses are really expensive. And the crop, the crop is 1.8 or some ridiculous figure, that's in there. So that's hurt them particularly. If you look at, say, Nikon, well, Nikon have done a pretty good release. But again, they've held back. You're paying basically the same money for, say, a D850 for the Nikon Z7, and it's got one card slot. What were they thinking? They obviously were thinking that we don't want everyone to just jump ship onto the mirrorless cameras, so we're going to hold something back and force people to still buy the digital SLRs. And that was a flawed strategy. It's always flawed. The reason why the a7 III has sold so well is due to the fact that Sony held nothing back on that camera, nothing. When that camera was released, everyone went, oh my God, what are they giving you for the price? And that's the way that these camera manufacturers have to think. And if they don't wake up, they're going to be in real trouble. And this is the fact of what's going to happen, that if they don't wake up, they're going to be in real trouble. Sony still haven't released their next generation cameras. And who knows what the new A9 is going to be? Who knows what the new A7, I'll talk about that in a minute, but who knows what the new A7S III is going to have, the new A7000 is going to have, if that's what they call it. So they still haven't even released that yet, and they're still winning in the mirrorless camera sales. And that must frighten Canon and Nikon to death, basically, because what's going to happen? What's going to happen when Sony release their new versions of those cameras? You can think Nikon probably won't release or replace these cameras. They don't update like Sony do, even though Sony have seemed to slow down a little bit now. They don't update like Sony do, neither do Canon. So if you think about it, this year, late this year, or definitely next year, you're going to have amazing releases from Sony that are probably going to blow everything out of the water. What's that going to do to sales? I don't know. Their lenses now on the Sony side of things are exemplary. They're as good as anything out there. Yes, they still have a couple of lenses lacking for sports shooters, but that will come out. The sports and wildlife shooters are going to come out soon. So then why would you choose Canon or Nikon if they don't up their game? And this is the thing. I think people have just had enough, and I think they're just sick of it. And I think they're now just saying, well, look, we're going to go to a company that they know will give you a great release each time it comes out and not hold back. And now, in fact, now that Sony seem to be doing decent firmware upgrades, that is even another feather in the Sony cap, because before that never happened. And, when you bought a Sony camera, that was almost it. Whereas now you are getting amazing firmware upgrades. So that's another feature of that as well. So I'd love to know your opinion about this article, but it looks like Sony is just kicking goals. I really do think that they're kicking goals. Gerald said, that was me that had the Sigma. Oh, it was you, Gerald, was it? Yeah, I couldn't remember. 20mm 1.4 Canon mount converted to native E-mount by Sigma. Focus is better and faster with the new algorithms. Yeah, so that's interesting. Dion said, PJ Smith, because he's answering to PJ Smith, it is 219, not 210. Get with the times. Nikon and Canon are dropping so fast. And they are. This is the thing. They are dropping really, really fast. And they've got to be very careful about what's going on. Look, let's face it. Nikon is the future. Mirrorless is the future. I know Nikon are just about to announce a new D6, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's the end of the line for their high-end digital SLRs. the next one I think will be mirrorless. But, are they leaving things too late? And I think it would have almost been better to bring out some amazing mirrorless D6 for Nikon that could take, say, the normal lenses with an adapter and still perform just as well, and then at least move over to the mirrorless. They've got to stop holding back, because clearly mirrorless is the future, and we all know that. We know that mirrorless is the future. And if you don't think it is, you're going to be like the days when you shot film and you're going to be left behind. Let's face it, it's just the way that it's going to be. Mark said the autofocus is snappy. I would say it's as fast, if not faster, compared to my Sony 90mm macro. Oh, that's good, Mark. Mark's talking about the Canon 135 version of the Sigma mount that I'm going to get on next week to try to compare it to my Sony and just review it for you guys. I'm just curious to see how the Sigma 135, the quality is, and I've got a feeling it's going to be excellent. If it's as good as the 105, it's going to be outstanding. Gerald said, I was in a major camera store in Dallas area and was told the sales of the Nikon Z6 and the EOS R and the EOS RP have stalled. And that's probably why, Gerald, that you're seeing so many specials available. Here in Australia, the Z7 is $600 off, and I think the Z6 is $200 off. We definitely didn't see sales like that for the Sony cameras for the first 12 months or so. Like, to have sales so early on those cameras does tell you that they're having issues with selling them. I know there's A7 sales starting to happen now, like A7 III, but that camera's been out for a long, long time. In fact, the Z6 now is cheaper than what the A7 III is, which is really interesting. Langston said Fuji seemingly came out of nowhere and started eating. Yeah, well, Fuji are doing really well, Langston, and they actually are a great company. Great lenses, stuff like that. But remember, only APS-C and medium format. They haven't got anything in the full frame area. I don't think they want to tackle the full frame area. I think they want to leave that to everyone else battling that out. Fuji have probably made quite a good strategy in, say, just concentrating on APS-C, which is they do very, very well, and also medium format, which they do very, very well. Their cameras that they're selling for medium format are amazing for the price that you're getting them. They're up there with anything that's out there. Chris said, I really felt like Canon and Nikon just released something so that people invested in the system had an excuse not to jump to Sony or Fuji if they wanted mirrorless. And I agree with you. I agree totally, Chris. I think they saw numbers were bleeding away, and they've said, well, we've got to do something. I should do a Camera Conspiracies. What do you mean they're selling really well? I've got to do that takeoff of Casey. I've got to do it. Yeah, and I do think that they probably were trying to bleed people off, and they were saying, we're losing people. We've got to bring something out. But why would you bring out such a flawed product to start with? There was no excuse for doing that. Like, if they brought out a decent camera that had, obviously the sensor, they must be having issues with development with sensors, because Canon just can't seem to get really good sensors like to what Nikon and Sony do. Well, Nikon are probably using Sony ones anyway, but, they can't seem to compete at this stage. But having that crop in there is just, it is ridiculous, and having the RP where you can't even shoot 24p on the thing. I mean, see, these are the things that these manufacturers do. Trying to say that, a professional shooter is going to shoot with the Nikon and have one card slot. I just don't understand their thinking. I really don't. Sizzleman said, Chris said, did I read that one? Oh, yeah, I did. Sizzleman said, I just jumped to Sony from Nikon 2 weeks ago. Love my A9. I know. The A9 cannot be beat. It really can't. It's the best camera I've ever had by far. Like I said, it's almost like cheating. It's that good that it's almost like cheating. Floria said the A7000 myth or reality. I know, look, we're still waiting. They're going to have to upgrade the A6500 though sooner or later, Florio. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. I'll talk about the A6400 soon. But I do think that there's definitely going to be a replacement for the A6500, and I think that's still going to be before the A7S, due to the fact that I'm still picking global shutter. But I'll talk about the A7S in the next story. But I know, we just have to wait. And the problem is, and I know I keep saying it, Sony really haven't been pushed really yet. Fuji have. Fuji definitely is the best APS-C camera on the marketplace at the moment. The X-T3 is definitely the best APS-C camera, but they still will be selling A6400s and A6500s like, you know, crazy. I was going to say hotcakes, but Casey tells everyone off if you say hotcakes. But, you know, so it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when. Why isn't it announced yet? Has it come out now to defeat the X-T3? Don't you guys think? Yeah, well, we don't know why it hasn't been announced. We probably know that the X-T3 has a Sony sensor anyway. I think it's just a matter of time. My prediction is that we're going to get the A7000 or whatever it is first, sometime mid-year, and then the A7S3 maybe late in the year. I still am predicting, and like I said, I'm going through the A7S in a minute, but I still think it's going to have a global shutter. Johnson City says, Nikon is just mad because Sony won't sell the A9 sensors for the D6. Yeah, and that's it. Sony are pretty smart, aren't they, that they've kept those best sensors for themselves, and that's a really smart business decisions. They do that with all of their sensors. They give a slightly dumbed down version to Nikon and everyone else, and they keep the high-end sensors for themselves. Jalini says, even from a year from now, the A7 III will be selling well. Nikon and Canon need new mirrorless pro bodies this year or early next year. I don't know if they're going to do it, though. Christopher said, I don't think moving to mirrorless is as great as going from film to digital. Well, I did. It was the biggest thing that I ever changed, Christopher, but, you know, everyone thinks differently. I'm just laughing at Carl because he says, buy one ESR, get one for free. I love it. Oreo said, David, I don't think Nikon is holding back. In my opinion, they are lagging behind and they released an amateur level camera because they're not up to pro level with mirrorless software. Yeah, but the reason why I'm saying this, Oreo, is the Z cameras are actually very, very good. The video is beautiful on those cameras and the stills are really nice. The autofocus struggles a little bit if you're dealing with low light and stuff. It does search a little bit. There's a new firmware upgrade coming out very soon that gives you better IAF. The thing I'm saying about Nikon is there was no reason for them to hold that second card slot back. That's really the only flaw in that camera that I can actually see. Apart from that, it's a very good release. It really is a good release. The Nikon release is much better than the Canon release. Mark said the picture quality on the 135 Sigma is stellar. Images are pin sharp and compression is mind-blowing. Although I've used the Sigma 105 once and not used the Sony 35 so far. Yep, I'm dying to try the Sony. I haven't really used this yet. I've just played around with it, and I'll talk about that soon. Frog said there are Nikon users buying the Z6, Z7. There's nothing better for Nikon users. Yeah, and you're right, there's not. Michael said Canon and Nikon are caught in a pincer between dropping cameras sales, especially entry-level cameras where they hold market share, and the inevitable movement from digital SLR to mirrorless. Yeah, but sooner or later, they're going to have to make a decision to say we're going to push this full on. Casper said everyone is waiting for the new iPhone with 3 lenses. Delta said D850 is a kick-ass camera. It's an amazing camera, Dave. I agree with you. That's probably the best digital SLR that's ever been produced. I think that one. I'll bet the Z6, Z7 sales are hurt by the D850. Florio said, how about the Panasonic S1 and the SR1? There's a few things. Well, the main problem with the Panasonic line of cameras is it seems to be a good system overall. The contrast detection really worries me, but I haven't used one, but I can only talk from experience that the contrast detection worries me on that camera. It's also really expensive compared to the competition, and the lenses are expensive. Sigma are going to bring out native lenses, so then it might drop down in price. But at the moment, it's a really expensive way to get in, and that's why I think it won't sell that well. Where were we? No, the D6 isn't out yet, Johnson. It's going to be announced. It'll be out before the Olympics, so sometime this year probably. Johnson said the A9 sensor is the one that Sony Semiconductor hasn't released to the public after 2 years of it being in their own body. That's right. They haven't released that at all. Mark said, just got the Sigma S10 Plus and the ultra-wide lens is crazy, especially when doing pancakes. Yeah, hotcakes, Dion. You can't say hotcakes. Casey told everyone off for saying hotcakes. Gerald said, not sure some Nikon folks will buy them, but that is not big enough overall approach for the top of the full-frame mirrorless market. That is why Nikon folks are sticking to their digital SLRs. Yeah, they're not good enough to switch over, and that's what Nikon have to, like I said, Nikon and Canon have to make a decision sooner or later that we're going to full on go for mirrorless, and that's what I think they should do. If they've got any brains at all, they should be going all out to mirrorless. Otherwise, I think they're going to go back. They'll go broke. I'm convinced if they don't do it, they're going to be in real trouble. And they both have to do that, or are they going to keep trying to mix their digital SLRs and also their mirrorless cameras and do it 50-50, and it's not going to work. You just can't do that for a long period of time. D said mirrorless is the future, but with Canon selling 850,000 cameras last year, people are still buying digital SLRs. Yes, but the problem is, D, is that the number's dropping fast. This is the thing that you've got to understand. If you compare them from the year before or the year before, the numbers are dropping significantly. And I mean significantly. So it's a real problem for these manufacturers because they're losing their bottom line, and that's what they've got to be very careful about. We got 3 down likes now. I told you the second I start bagging Canon, we're going to get down likes. Let's get the up votes going, guys. Let's blast those Canon lovers out of here. I love it. I don't know why they watch this show. I said to them at the beginning, this is the Sony show. If you don't like Sony, don't watch it. And they still watch it. And then they give me downvotes. It's gone down to 4. I love it. Oh, what a crack up. What else have we got? So we've got 4 Canon lovers in here. Let's get the upvotes. Oh, look, 51. We've blitzed them now. It's gone to 5 downvotes, but we're 51 up, guys. Look, let's face it. Sony are just winners. Oh, that's funny. Where were we? Oreo said, Canon cameras are so outdated that their warranty extends to 3 years in the past. Gerald says, I agree, Nikon release is better than the Canon release, but their lack of dual card slots have saved their digital SLR sales. Yep, and that's all it could be. That is all that could be. I really do not understand. Delta Dave said, Locke reviewed the S1 and the autofocus was horrible. And this is the thing, Dave. Like I said, I used the GH5. Contrast autofocus is never going to beat phase detection. And I cannot understand why Panasonic kept going down that path. I really do not understand why they did that. It's just crazy. I just don't understand it. They had the perfect chance to get rid of that and go phase detection when they built the full frame camera, but they kept with contrast, and I just don't understand it. Great video though, and Chris said the one thing I like about the Panasonic cameras is they weren't afraid to go chunky with their body, and also the video will be outstanding. You can guarantee that their video will be outstanding, Chris, with the Panasonics. The GH5 was stellar. Gene said, what a great company. Sam said, what is wrong with hotcakes? I love hotcakes. Yes, but you can't. Casey had a go at people for saying it sells like hotcakes. He said every YouTuber says it sells like hotcakes, and he didn't know what it meant. I I'm going to have to skip a few of these because we need to move on. I'm going to talk about Adobe Wayne a little bit later. Jim said, greetings. G'day, Jim. Good to see you in here. Sydney said, what do you think of the Fujifilm medium format line? Well, they seem to be great cameras. I'm not into medium format, though, but if you are, I think Fuji are doing an outstanding job. That's 6 times David hasn't read my comment. I'm going to damn vote next time. It's lucky I read that one, PJ. Where are we? Sometimes I just skip, guys. I just have to, or we'll be here for ages. All right, let's go to the next story. So I'm just going to put in the time down here. We're going to go to the Sony a7S3 specs that were leaked. 45, 35. All right, so let me go on to this one. So if you're looking at that, this is an alpha rumor. They've got some new A7S specs. I mean, I'm not sure how accurate these are, but I just thought that I'd read you out with them, and then we can have just a discussion again quickly about what's going off here. I just want to put in here next story too, just so we know where we were in the chat. So what they're saying is, I think down here, on Sony Alphas, they're saying, but he's giving it a 10% chance because he's never had this guy talk about rumors before, but he said he's got a new source that shared some of the A7S3 specs. He insisted these are correct. As this is a new source, I will rank the rumor low. But what they're saying in here is that the reason why it's held back is due to, which is saying there's no problem, but where did I read? I thought they said something about heat or something. No, it wasn't. I'm trying to remember what I read there. It was saying it was holding it back. I can't remember. No, it doesn't. It just talks about global shutter. Anyway, so what they're saying here is that this is going to be a 10-bit sensor. It's going to be, what else are they saying? 4K 60, 422. And they're saying that's no problem due to the processor or the sensor that it's actually using, which is really interesting. It's saying that it's going to have ridiculous ISO as well. They're not saying what it is yet, though, I don't think. It's saying ISO of 409,000 or something, it's saying there. That's from another sensor that they actually posted down here. If you look, it's talking about it down here. You can see it there. But they're not sure yet whether this is totally true. But it looks like, and this is not probably that far away to what I was talking about when we mentioned the A7S3 in a couple of, I think we talked about it in the last live actually. So I do think that there's got to be, and we discussed this last time, I still think that there's a reason why Sony are holding back, and that's why I predicted that they're going to have a global shutter. Now, they're saying that on this article, they're saying that this is not a global shutter. The sensor is not officially, I'll highlight it so you can see what I'm talking about. They're saying there that the sensor is not officially a global shutter, but the readout is so fast that it's damn near global shutter till next time, where it probably will be a global shutter. I still think that it will be a global shutter. That's still my prediction, is that Sony are going to produce a global shutter in this camera. They're still working on that aspect of it. I still think it will be 4K 60. They may even give 4K 120. But like I said, this has a rumor that this is going to be an 8K camera. I think that was mentioned. Was that mentioned somewhere on that article? I'm just trying to see. No, it doesn't mention it on that article. But I'm still predicting. Oh, yes, it does. It actually says it down here. It's saying there that the A7S3 will have 8K 60p 10-bit 422. So they're predicting that it's going to have that. 8K 60p 10-bit 422 low light powerhouse. And it says the delay, I'll highlight that for you. It says the delay of the camera has been because of the time to develop this new codec. So they're saying that the delay wasn't anything to do with heat or anything. They're saying the delay is to release that new 8K codec that's there. So that's an interesting comment in itself. I don't think that's the delay. I think the delay is that we're waiting on a global shutter, but that's just what I'm predicting that's going to happen here. I think we'll definitely get 4K 60p. We probably may get 8K, and then at least you can then go down to 4K 60p if you want to do that. It will be 60p, but we may get 120p. But that's just my prediction. There's got to be a reason why Sony are holding back so much. And if you watched a lot of those other discussions we had where it had the Sony managers and things like that saying they were going to exceed expectations and surprise everyone with that camera. Well, the real way they can surprise people, there's two ways. It could be 8K, could be one of them, and a global shutter could be another way that they could really surprise customers. Everything else couldn't be a surprise. 4K 60p is not a surprise anymore. High ISO really is not that much of a surprise anymore. It's got to be something that is game-changing, and like I said, that could either be 8K. There's an 8K phone that I discussed with Aaron on Wednesday with you guys, or Tuesday with you guys. So it's all there. It's going to happen. So I'm predicting that it's still going to be global shutter or 8K that's released that we're waiting on. So that's that story. Let me just quickly open the chat to see what people are saying about it. I'll read that. PJ said, but Sony loving people also attack Canon, Nikon people too. Yeah, they do, and it does go back and forth, PJ. I know what you're saying. But I still think that if you're looking at it, those two companies are holding back, and that's the problem. Tim said, only A7R1 though. Oh, okay, so are you saying that he didn't test the other one? Johnny said, the camera manufacturers need to understand that the modern camera user has been brought up on the iPhone with WYSIWYG. And exactly, Johnny, that's the point that I've made to a lot of people before, that everyone now is used to using these. The young people that are coming into the marketplace are used to using a mobile phone. And they're all going to move down the mirrorless side of it because as soon as they see a camera that has a WYSIWYG display that, will have the fold-out screen or whatever, they can touch on the back of it to get focus and not have to use an EVF, they're going to go down that line. I can tell you that's the way it's going to be. Mark said Sony S3 onto it like a dog on a bone. Delta Dave said Sony is not a camera company, they're a consumer electrics company. Sincerely, Panasonic. Chris said the leak seems more like a wish list than anything else. It may be true, but with so little info floating around, a brand new source isn't going to convince me of much. Yeah, it's so hard at this stage because there's speculation going everywhere, Chris. Gerald said they said holding it back was the software coding. And that's for the that's right, Gerald. It was for that codec, the 8K codec. That's what they're saying there. It's sad when a company that makes game consoles is kicking their ass. But you know what? I don't think it's a bad thing. And this is why I always laugh when Ken goes on about, Mr. Angry goes on about Sony's not a photography company or a camera manufacturer. Who cares? Look, seriously, in one way it's really good because if something went bad, they've also got money like in TVs, they've got money in game consoles, they've got money in sensors, they've got money everywhere that can cover things when things go a little bit tight. And that can be a real advantage. If you're someone that is just solely into photography and that section goes bad, that company's in real trouble. So I think, when he talks about that, I think that's a flawed comment. PJ said there's no way it's an 8K camera. Well, might be. That new phone was 8K. It's coming. It's just a matter of time. What else have we got? I'm just trying to see. I'm chilling in my bathtub. PJ said, how could you produce an 8K camera for a decent price? Well, everyone was shocked when they did that with the Sony a7 III, PJ. Sony changed everything when that a7 III was released, because before that, no one could do a 4K camera for that price. I'm not saying it's going to be cheap. There's no reason why the Sony a7S III has to be a cheap camera. You know, the A9, when it came out, was a really expensive camera. Hope you like pics. G'day. Thank you for joining us. Aria said, David, I think you're right in the money about global shutter. Yeah, I'm just picking it. Look, I might be wrong, but I'm just picking that's what it's going to be. Theodore, the thing is the a7S III will be will at least be 4K, and that's the thing, it will be. It's not going to be a cheap camera, so you're going to have to be ready for that. I'm sure of it. Don't forget too, yeah, Johnson said there that also the Sony, Panasonic obviously have used the new Sony EVF, so they're even making amazing EVFs as well. Like, they're into everything, and like I said, I think that's a great thing. Leanna, g'day Leanna. Sean said, is the a7 III still worth getting right now if I'm upgrading from an a6500? Yes, definitely. Yeah, I mean, the a7 III is a big upgrade from that. Either that or you could get the a6400 is also an upgrade, I believe, after using it. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, the a7 III is a much better camera than the a6500. I would expect the S3 to be less amazing than most are thinking. Probably 4K 60, stack sensor, A9 focus system. Well, we're going to have to wait and see, Ryan. Thank you for the thumbs up too, everyone. The Avatar movie was shot in Sony Venice camera. That's professional enough. Dion said, Sony is a very diverse company, so they can afford to take a hit in a couple of divisions. And that's exactly right, Dion. And that's why I'm saying I think it's an advantage to have that ability to do that. They can take a hit for a couple of years if something's not doing well, whereas other companies may not be able to do that. You know, and that's one thing you've got to understand. And I think that's a great thing with Sony now. And to sort of say that, you know, to say they're not a camera company is ridiculous when you think they took over Minolta, which was a camera company. But you can't tell me that lenses like what they're producing now, like the 135, the cameras that they're producing, the G-Master lenses, are not incredible gear. And to say it's not a camera company is just silly. Santi says, I think it will be 8K external. Yeah, that may be the case. It might be 4K internal 60p, 8K external, and that could be true. And that's fine. Andrew said, simultaneous video and stills capture. Sony Panasonic has set up a post video and low... I'm not sure what that means, Andrew. I'm having trouble reading it. Tim said, Sony is building everyone else's sensors. Exactly. They could cripple every company by stopping sensor release, but they are making really good money from that, and that's why they separated the sensor division to the camera division as well. That was a very smart move. But don't forget, they are holding back in their sensor department. Like, no one can buy the A9 sensor, for instance. So Sony aren't silly. They'll keep those best sensors for themselves and then give the other sensors to someone else. PJ says, so you think Sony is going to take a 2,000 price point camera and make it a 4,000 or more? Because that's what it would cost. Yes, they may, PJ. Yeah. I don't think... Look, the A9 cost me $7,000 when I bought it. It's not that now. I think it's around $5,000. But that was an expensive camera at the time. I'm expecting if the a7S III is as ahead of the game when it's released, you're going to have to pay for it. And people will. People will pay for it. They've proven that with the A9. MJ says there's got to be some crossover science when it comes to cameras, TV cameras, etc. Exactly, MJ. Wayne said it doesn't matter that Canon can't make great camera. They're the number one in printers. Yeah, and they have got other things too. And don't forget Canon, and I think Nikon too, make medical stuff and things like that as well. So they have got other areas where they can go to. Joe Riggs said, why doesn't Sony have a flip-out screen? No idea. And that's about it. All right, let's go on to the next one. I'll just read this last one. Real Light says, with a stacked sensor, if it doesn't have a global shutter, I'm okay with that. Yeah, well, so would I be, but because they're probably going to eliminate rolling shutter with a really fast stacked sensor anyway. Okay, and what time are we on? 59, 45. All right, I just wanted to show this, to discuss this, that it's all shipping now. So the G Master lenses now are all shipping out now. I don't know whether or how easy they are to just purchase. I noticed Gerald, though, bought one the other day, and he said it is waiting for him. So you may be able to get one. It might not be as hard to get as the 24mm. And that could be also because the 24mm is probably a focal length that a lot more people are interested in as well. The 24 is still ridiculously hard to get. The 135 may get that way though too. I'm just not sure yet how hard they are if you want to order them. But it is shipping now for everyone. And there's a number of reviews out online as well. Like I said, I'm going to be shooting this weekend for the first shoot as well. There's a couple there. I mean, I'm obviously there when I did the unboxing, but you know, there's stuff there. Also, the comparison is there if you wanted to check that out, where I did the bokeh test between the Sigma 105 and the Sony 135, which was a really interesting test as well. But I can tell you that the build quality on the 135 GM is outstanding. I mean, this is my first GM lens, so I haven't had a GM lens before. I've just been happy with shooting what I've been shooting with, but it is really, you know, like I said, outstanding. It's a gorgeous lens. You know, and you can feel the quality in it. It does feel really nice. Now, having said that, the Sigma 105 is also built beautifully as well. I think all the high-end lenses now are outstanding, but in my quick testing of this, there's a couple of things that Sony, I just love what Sony do. I love this declickable aperture ring. I mean, the declickable aperture ring is just outstanding. You can see that's smooth now. If I put it up near the microphone, there'll be no noise. If I stick the click on, you'll now hear that it steps. And also, if you put it onto the A, well, then you can use it as a conventional camera, you know, and where are we there? You can use it as a conventional camera by just using your dials on the back of your camera. You've got the buttons for your IAF or whatever else you want to program it to. You've got a focus delimiter there on that as well. You've also got an AF manual focus switch there. So yes, look, it's about $1,000 dearer than the Sigma, but the Sigma has none of those features. So you are paying to get a lot of those features. The other thing that I can tell you is that in my initial testing just around the house and stuff, the focus on the 135 is insane. It really is insane how fast and silent the autofocus is on that lens. So I'm dying to try it on Saturday's shoot. So I'm really looking forward to that, photographing Matisse around Melbourne. Bokeh-wise, really good, and I showed that, like I said, in that test that I did here. Both of them gave the Sigma, the Sony is on the left-hand side and the Sigma is on the right-hand side, the 105. Both of them gave onion ring, sorry, not onion ring, neither of them had onion ring actually. Both of them gave that footy ball look, or the lemony look, wide open. But the second I closed it down to 2.8, it was incredibly round actually. Both of them were very, very good, like really good. So bokeh-wise, I think it's not an issue. But I did discuss that. I've never had a client that said to me, David, your bokeh's not round. And I think they're outstanding. If you really do want that completely round bokeh, you need to go to something like the STF. But 2.8, by the time I'd gone to 2.8 on this, the bokeh was completely round. I mean, completely round. And it's beautiful, actually. So I'm dying to have a look at how it works. So stay tuned for that. That'll be coming up next week. I'll have some postings up on that you'll be able to see a real live shoot rather than me just going out shooting brick walls and stuff like that. So stay tuned for that. I'm not going to skip to the chat yet because we'll go to another thing. What are we on? 1 hour 04. 1:04:15. Because I wanted to bring up this next story. Was from Sigma, because Sigma, they've confirmed that they are designing these new mirrorless lenses full frame lenses. So in 2019, they're saying that basically what they're saying is that they're going to get rid of that flange distance issue, because at the moment, and this is the problem, like if you look at the 105, the flange that's here is different if you get the Nikon version as compared to the Canon version. It doesn't have that flange like that there, so the lens looks much different. So what you're going to find is that Sigma are going to design like Tamron have. Have I got the Tamron here? Yeah, but it's on another rig. Sigma are going to design lenses probably similar to what the Tamron is, which is designed for mirrorless. So they're going to have a different... check out this rig too. How good is this rig? So check out... I think this is what's going to happen. You're going to get a much more smaller type design lens. It'll be similar to what... probably what Sony have been doing. You know, that they're sort of built for mirrorless from the ground up. So that's coming. And they're saying it's going to be sometime in 2019. What's it saying? They're also saying they're going to do L mount as well. So they've got a few things in the work. I'm just seeing if it mentions Sony at all. They're just saying here about Sigma FE lenses. I'll just highlight this so you can see it. So they're saying there that they're surprisingly good for sales, and it doesn't surprise me at all, actually. They like the optical performance of the lenses. It's better than I expected, but there are also some people waiting for a lens design for a short flange back, so we are working on it. And that's the thing that they're working on at this stage, is to make that flange at the back more workable, which is going to make the lens much smaller. So it's going to be interesting, you know, and I think it's going to happen. It looks like the quality is just outstanding now on these lenses. I've been really, really surprised with the Sigma 16mm on the APS-C cameras. Outstanding, actually. I cannot believe. Yes, it's a reasonable size, but this is a Sigma 1.4. I'm going to do a review on this soon, but this lens is stunning. It focuses ridiculously quick as any native lens that I've got on Sony. It's beautiful. I'd love to have a look at the 56, is it as well, or the 53? I can't remember. I'd like to get that because that gives you the 85 focal length, so I may even get that. But great on a gimbal, beautiful to use, stunning. And like I've said now, that, you know, we're so lucky in the Sony marketplace, because... I just want to put that down so it doesn't drop. Oh, no, that's all right. Because we've got Sigma, amazing lenses. We've got Tamron, amazing lenses. Sony have got every lens almost covered now. Incredible lenses. You know, we really are blessed now in this marketplace. We really are. Now, I just want to come to the chat for a minute just to see what people are saying before we move on. Where were we? Can't wait to shoot with the 135 this weekend, Eric's saying. Yeah, I can't wait either, Eric. I'm really excited about it, actually. And I think from what I've looked at, the 135 particularly is amazing in low light. Like I've used it in the studio in really dark lighting, and it still grabs the face and eyes. It's incredible. So it looks like it's going to be a beautiful lens to do in low light scenarios. It really is, as long as you have that working space. But if you're doing head and shoulders, brilliant. It's certainly a lens that I'm going to take to every wedding I do. Lucid said the lenses are getting stupidly priced. I don't think they are. I don't think they're any different than before. I think if you look at lens releases when they were brought out, when the Canon lenses first came out, it's all equal. There have always been 2,000 lenses. Yes, there have been. I agree, PJ. What else have we got? It's a big lens. Yeah, it is the Sigma one, that's for sure. Real Light says, I think the A7, I think he's talking about that, will be priced the same as the A9 when it first came out. Yep, I agree. The aperture ring must be from the Sony Zeiss experience. Yes, the lens I'm using now, the 35, also has it. So I've got the 35 full frame 1.4 lens. That also has it, and I love it for video. It's a video thing, but I love it even for stills. I just like the way it works. I really do love it. What else have we got? I agree with what PJ's saying. The lenses aren't getting more expensive. They've always been around that price. Oreo said, I think Sigma will design lenses similar to the Batis line. Yeah, they may, Oreo. The Batis are beautiful. F2 to f2.8 lenses, compact and affordable. More affordable than the Batis anyway. Gerald said, the Sigma Art 70 2.8 macro is a new design mirrorless lens for E-mount, compact and short flange. There you go. So they've proven they can do it there too, Gerald. Thanks for sharing that. Heroes in here. G'day, mate. Johnson City said, some full-frame Sigma lenses like the E-mount APS-C would be great. I'd eat up a 16 1.4. Yeah, that lens, I love that lens. It's amazing. Really sharp too. Daniel said, did you see the EOS HD article about Sony? It seems most of the other manufacturers are doomed if they don't put out better cameras. No, I never saw that, Daniel, unfortunately. If you can find it, stick it in the chat box. PJ Smith said, we are talking about that already, but it's just that mirrorless and a7 III overall Canon and Nikon are outselling Sony by a lot. Yeah. Johnson said, and I'm cool with that. I don't shoot with pocket cameras. Daniel said, also, I'm considering picking up either the G Master 70-200 or the 135. I've got the budget for one lens. Which one do you think would be better and more useful? Look, I can only talk from my experience, Daniel. Since I've looked at using the 105 particularly, and I've done shots around the house, I think for what I shoot, I'd prefer the 135. I'm only saying that because I have the 2470. I've also got the Batis 85 if I need that. I very rarely shoot much longer than that, and I've got the 70-200 f4 if I need the but it's the cheaper one. It's not the G Master one. But I'm thinking for the way that I shoot low light stuff, dances, things like that, to have a 1.8 version of the lens with unbelievable focusing. I mean, the focusing is nuts on this, and it really is nuts on this lens. You've got to use it to understand how good the focus is. If you don't need the range of 200, I'd get the 135. If you're using an a7R3, you can always use it in crop mode anyway, and you're over that anyway. If you've got an a7 III, well then it's not as easy to crop in because you do lose resolution. The a7 R3, that's the beauty of that camera, that you could use this on it and get over 200mm anyway. If it was me buying lenses now and I only had the money for one, depending on what other lenses you've got that are lower than that and everything, of course, I'd get the 135. See, PJ said the 70-200 is more useful. Yeah, and it probably is depending on what you want, but I would, like I said, I'd get the 135. Knowles said, nice to see you too, Knowles. Yes, lens prices always have various price points. Daniel says, that's where I am. I do a lot of weddings and portraits. I'm often shooting wide, but I need something long for those occasional portraits of individuals and couples. If you have wide lenses and stuff like that as well, I'd get the 135. But others are going to disagree with me. Remember, it's a personal thing. The 1.8 aperture on this is incredible. The focus is out of this world. Yeah, I'd get the 135. And Mark said, giving suggestions about which lens really depends on what you shoot. Yes, it does. All right, so let's go on to the next one, because I just wanted to talk about this briefly to you, because it's about the a6400 and how much it surprised me. 113.30. Next story. See, Eric said he sold his 70-200 to get the GM. And I think I probably will do the same. I almost said to Kerry I'd almost think about selling the 70-200, but I'm going to keep it. But yeah, but anyway, let's go to the next story, which is this little story about the a6400. But there's a good review on the a6400. Let me just move this down. There's a good review on the a6400 on DP Review. Some great things talking about it. I'm just going to skip because I'll put all these down below so you can have a look at the article. But if we look at the conclusion about this, it really is an incredible camera. I've been shocked after using it. Just to quickly go through this before I show you this quick article. I love the fold-up screen. Being a YouTuber and vlogger, I love that aspect of having that, particularly now that Small Rig have brought out these amazing little adapters that you can use on the edges where you can put your microphone. I haven't got the mic in here. So that's incredible. The focus on this is really, really good. I mean, really good. The focus tracking is really good. It's not as good as my A9, but it's really good. And I love how I can use it for video. The latest videos that you'll see where I've been shooting Matisse have been shot with this on my Moser Air Cross, and it's been outstanding, and I really have enjoyed using it. So it's surprised me in a lot of ways. Yes, it doesn't have IBIS, which is a downfall if you're not using a gimbal, but everything I do like that has a gimbal anyway, so it doesn't bother me. I suppose you could use a stabilized lens if you wanted to, like the 10-18 that I have. But overall, I've found it just amazing. The EVF is not fantastic, but it's okay. But the fold-up screen I love. The touch tracking, though, is just outstanding. And it's also got the HLG log if you want it as well. But fantastic. Now, their review is sort of saying similar things, you know, that leading autofocus was put down there, and I have to agree with that. Good JPEG. They have improved the color, and they seem to be improving the color with every new release now. Detail 4K and slow-mo at 1080p. There's no record limit, which is the first time Sony have brought that out in their cameras. These sort of cameras anyway. There's no record limit on there, so you can record all day. I did do an overheating test, and it didn't overheat in really hot temperatures. So, you know, that's fantastic as well. It's saying high quality electric viewfinder, good battery life. Battery life is up about 30%, so it is much, much better. Customizable USB, it's got USB charging as well. The things they say they don't like is lack of IBIS. Well, that's definitely there, and they're saying the slot is a UHS-1 and it's slow. No camera in RAW processing. Tap to track video must be enabled. Yeah, you do have to enable that, and that's why a lot of people couldn't work out how to do it. And I've put a video out about that, how you enable the touch tracking. And it doesn't remember the exposure settings between stills and video, and that does annoy the crap out of me, actually, how when you set something and turn to video, it's all gone. It really is a bit silly. But overall, you know, that they're saying it's a fantastic camera. It's saying it's unprecedented capable camera for its price point. Enthusiasts and pros alike will appreciate the class-leading pro-grade AF system. And it is class-leading AF, that's for sure. Detailed 4K video, easy to tap autofocus, makes for compelling run-and-gun camera, though you'll want to stick on a stabilized lenses. To sum up, a6400 truly impresses and is arguably more capable than many cameras at a far higher price point. My only concern is its usability. I often find myself using it more as a point and shoot. And that's due to the fact that it's so light, I suppose. But it really has surprised me. It really has. And I've really enjoyed using it. Kerry's love using it, particularly now with the touch tracking. Fantastic to stick on a gimbal, you know, like you follow a bride down the aisle and things like that. I'll have a review up of it probably fairly soon. Also the Sigma, I'll review that Sigma lens for you as well. Now, before we go open up Q&A, there's one more story that I wanted to talk about, which is the Adobe price increase. So let me just put down here, what are we on, 118? 20. I did notice that Petapixel had shared this, that Adobe have... Now, some are saying that they've seen this, and others are saying that they haven't seen it. So I'm not sure... if it really is there yet, and some people may be able to let me know, but it looks like there's a possibility they're going to change their photography plan, which is having Lightroom and Photoshop up by $10 a month. Now, you are getting 1 terabyte, but I never use that feature, so, you know, I'm a little bit unhappy about it. At the moment, you get 1 terabyte, 20 gigabytes, but it's going to go up to 1 terabyte. So it's showing the plans here. The photography plan is now saying US $99.99 a month. Let me just lower that down a bit. The Lightroom plan, if you're getting Lightroom on its own, is $9.99. If you want all Creative Cloud apps, it's $52. It's not cheap, is it? Like if you only want a Premiere, boy, is that expensive. So it's an interesting article. Hopefully, Adobe, they're saying, Petapixel are saying that Adobe was saying that they're just testing this pricing out, which I don't know how ethical that is. So some poor person hops in there, gets it for $20, and others are getting it for $10. But that is one big jump. Like people may have been able to take 15 or 12 or something like that to move it up in steps, but to go from $10 up to $20 per month is a big jump up, particularly if you're not a professional photographer, hobbyist and things like that. And it's a pity. I mean, let me know what you think about. Obviously, we'll have a talk about this in the chat in a minute, and let me know in the comment box down below whether any of you are going to dump it. The problem is there's not really anything out there that I can use that will replace Photoshop, and that's the issue for me, and I just don't, yes, I mean, I can use Capture One, obviously, to replace Lightroom, but I've got nothing out there that is as powerful as what Photoshop is. So it's a bit upsetting, isn't it? All right, so let's open up the Q&A. So we 120, 40. Let's open that up and we can have a bit of a chat before I go and get a coffee. Where were we up to? Chris said, IBIS is great for photos, but for filming while walking around, a a6500 IBIS doesn't do well enough. Yeah, it won't. I can hold, though. The thing is, it does help. Like sometimes when I'm filming, I will hand hold my Sony a7 III and also the a9. I sort of bring my arm into my body like this. I mean, I wouldn't do it with this lens particularly, but, I'll sort of stand there and hand hold and film like this, and I get a pretty good result with a little bit of stabilization in post. It's actually acceptable. So I do that more often than not. So the IBIS is a real advantage. It does let you hand hold, but not walk with it, no. But it certainly will let you hand hold and get reasonable footage. Chris said, I would rather save the IBIS would cost and get a budget gimbal. Exactly, and that's the way that you can do it. What else have we got? Real Light says, I wish Sigma would create smaller lenses like Tamron. Well, that's what they're doing, Real. I think that's what they're saying they're going to develop in the future, is this new lens that's based on without that flange that's there at the moment. So we're waiting on that, but hopefully they can do it like what Tamron are. Johnson said, people want WYSIWYG camera. It stems from cell phone camera use. It's infinitely easier and more useful. Yeah, I hate going back to cameras that don't have that. Noel said, yep, love my Fuji. It's a poor man's Sony. No, it's not a poor man's Sony, Noel. It's a great camera. The Fuji make great stuff. So, yeah, don't put down your camera. There's nothing wrong with the Fuji cameras. Carl said, I'm guessing 5 or 6. I'm not sure what that was. Oh, you're talking about money. Ricat said, where were we? Lost it. Ricat said, yeah, the Sony IBIS isn't that great. I'm thinking of downgrading from the a6400. It's a much better camera. I got the a6500. I do much prefer the a6400 over it due to that tracking. I'd take the tracking any day over the IBIS, definitely. Yeah, and PJ, digital SLRs will be around for a long time. I agree with you, what you're saying there. They're just not going to sell the same, though. Gerald said, yes, there is. It's a price increase from $20 for the photo package. I hope, yeah, that's awful. Adobe are experimenting. Apparently, current users are grandfathered into the cheaper price. Yet to see that, though. Yeah, no one's mentioned that. I hope that's true, though, Tim. I really do, and I was hoping that when I saw that we may be grandfathered in. I'm hoping that's the case. Casper's cancelled his. What are you going to use? Do you use Photoshop, though, Casper? Johnson City says, but no worries, you'll still get another 4 years of digital SLRs being around. Nivek said, if you use Adobe apps, prepay an annual subscription if you can. That's usually a bit cheaper. Yeah. Jim just put that in. Thanks, Jim. Noel said, it's $10 more a month. I mean, I spend more on snacks on a daily basis. Yeah, but it does make a difference to people that are hard up for money, Noels, and that's the problem. I know what you're saying, but $10 can be a lot of money for some people. Casper said Capture One rules for Sony, but it doesn't replace Photoshop, Casper, though. Chris said, my wife does graphic designs and needs the full Adobe package, so lucky I can snatch her login. Yeah, I know, it's expensive. Dion says Paint Shop Pro. Is that any good, though, Dion, that Paint Shop Pro? If there was a viable options to replace the entire ecosystem, maybe. Noel said lots of pseudo-orage going on about Adobe. I'm not sure what that means. Particularly, photography isn't cheap. Also, there's plenty of cheaper non-cloud-based services like Capture One. Yeah, but I don't know about Luma. Is that a Photoshop replacement? Affinity, yes, I've heard of that. It is young but promising. Yeah, I haven't used it though. Where were we? Langston said, I don't know, 100% increase for any product is questionable. Yeah, that's what I thought too. It is, it's expensive. Jim says, I use Capture One, Affinity Photo. Affinity is just as capable as Photoshop and costs only US $49 when bought in 2018. Interesting. Noel said, 100% increase sounds bad, but it's $10 to $20. But like I said, that can be a lot of money for some people. Noel says, am I the only one who isn't outraged? Yeah, you might be, Noel. I don't care if it's $1 to $2. Means you're screwing people to get the exact same money. Peter says, to buy Photoshop 15 years ago was like 15... Yeah, I know, and this is something too that we have to understand as well. Peter's saying, to buy Photoshop 15 years ago, it was like $1,500. So $20 a month is actually not much in comparison, but they are mad for bumping that far. And I know, and we do forget that. I know that that's the case. Jim said 90 thumbs up. Have we got 90? Geez, we're nearly at 100. I'd love it if we can get to 100, guys. 10 more to go. Langston says, I pay for all that packages, so it's not about money for me. What else have we got? Well, he said something else. I guess I'm the only guy who feels randomly moving of price points is BS. Hi, Erica. Johnson City said, Knowles, tell them to shoot JPEG and they don't need to spend the $10. Also said, David, have you tried the time-lapse mode? No, I haven't tried that yet also. I must do that, actually. Jim said, Kerry discovers David's 135 GM purchase. Not yet. No, I've got a month for that. No, she knows about it now. Dion said, it's not bloatware like Photoshop. It also does conversion to save time. Okay. Johnson said, I downloaded the latest Luminar version since it was free. It has a decent library system now. Have barely used it though since. Tim said, how are they justifying their price change? Interesting to hear that what they actually say. Oh, we're 102. Thank you so much, everyone. Really appreciate the thumbs up. GIMP is... yeah, GIMP. I have used GIMP, but I haven't used GIMP... I used it years ago, and it wasn't bad. It was an interesting product. It was almost like a Photoshop clone. Mike said, so far, no increase for existing customers. Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. Are they going to grandfather us in? Kuro says, hello from Canada. Eli says, what happened to Jason and Danny's Monday Live? No, I think it's only because Jason's overseas, Eli. They'll be back, but I think because Jason's gone on 4 weeks travelling, they haven't been able to do it. So they'll be back, I'm sure. John says, hot news, Canon and Nikon new sales strategy to blitz Sony sales. Buy a Z6 and get an EOS R half price. Oh, you guys, honestly. It's no wonder that I get the thumbs down. Peter says, we pay one full CC account and 2 photo packages per month. It hurts? Yeah, well, see, it would. Eric said, I've been loving the interval function of the version 3 firmware. Can't believe it took a year to get in. Yeah, I haven't used it, but I very rarely do time-lapse, but I must go out there and use it. Andrew said, use Mac and iPad apps, photo apps over post-production is the devil, Satan, aka Photoshop. Not that I'm a saint, but minimal post-correction is more pure to me. So you're saying you like to use iPad apps over the Adobe apps. The speakers and the screen are great. All right, guys, we're sort of at the end. Like I said, if anyone does want to tag on with us on Friday, let me know. You're welcome to come along. I've already got one subscriber popping on the day. Like I said, it's 5 o'clock at Melbourne, the GPO, on Saturday evening. So if you'd like to pop along with us, watch me do the shoots, me, Kerry, myself, obviously, Matisse, feel free to pop along. Love giving things back to you guys. Apart from that, stay tuned. There'll be more videos coming up, obviously, soon. I've got to take the Sigma back on Monday, the 105, but then I'm getting the 135, so stay tuned for that. So I'm excited about doing that. I still have to do the review of the Sigma 16 because that's outstanding for APS-C. So stay tuned for that as well. So there's certainly lots coming up in the coming days. I am going to do an autofocus test of the 105 for you though, because that's native. I'll show you how that performs on the Sony bodies. And that's about it. So I'm saying enjoy your coffee. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you so much for the support. There's over 100 likes there now, so thank you so much for the support. And we'll see you definitely live on Aaron's show for the next one. We're on Aaron's channel next week, so stay tuned for that. Only 1 hour, 30 minutes today. It is a bit shorter, isn't it? So, bye everyone. Have a great weekend.